Welcome everybody here at the Salcedo Show on Newsmax TV. To their credit, the Biden administration did learn something from Team Obama. At no time has Biden promised to be the most transparent administration in history. The leftists who run Washington are living down to our exceptionally low expectations. Team Biden is forbidding the fawning press from visiting facilities where left-wingers accuse President Trump of keeping kids in cages. Team Biden is stopping the press from doing ride-alongs with our border agents. But that's not all the Biden administration is hiding. The liberal state bailout bill is packed with all kinds of surprises. The bill includes hidden taxes, massive spending unrelated to the China virus, and even funding for NGOs. That stands for non-governmental organizations. These groups have no loyalty to the United States. In fact, they often work against our nation and our people's best interests. Socialist Democrats made sure you funded these groups through USAID. $11 billion of your money went to U.S. foreign aid. Then some of that money is going to end up in the NGOs' pockets. Congressman Matt Gaetz says that's a problem.
What I can share with you, Chris, is that I've got intelligence directly from Northern Triangle countries that these cartels, these waves of illegal immigrants, they aren't just being fueled by the organized crime in that part of the world. They're also being funded by U.S. taxpayers. That's right. U.S. taxpayer money flows through the State Department, through USAID, and that money is ending up in the hands of NGOs that are advertising for and facilitating the caravans and movements of people into our country. It's sad to admit it, but the U.S. government may be one of the biggest human traffickers in the world.
It'd be funny if it weren't so tragic. That's right. Joe Biden is harming the United States with his border crisis and using our own tax dollars to promote it. Unlike the Surrender Caucus and the GOP, I am no longer in the mood to play nice with these socialists, being as fair to the socialists as they are to us. That's the balance we dispense in tonight's preamble. We start in Georgia. Police arrested a 21-year-old Georgia man on Tuesday after investigators said he opened fire at 3 separate metro Atlanta spas, killing 8 people and injuring 1 other. The shooter confessed he was driven by what he called a sex addiction. That's what drove him to seek out these facilities. But despite this, socialist Democrats started to blame people like me and President Trump because some of the victims happened to be of Asian descent. Leftist Congressman Ted Lieu chimed in on Twitter. The former president used racist phrases, he wrote, like Kung flu, that inflamed discrimination against the Asian American community. Officials that continue to use ethnic identifiers in describing the virus are part of the problem. Please instead be part of the solution. Hashtag stop Asian hate, he wrote. Now, Mr. Lieu, this man, is a special kind of stupid. First, the Kung flu is a derivative of the martial arts discipline known as Kung Fu. It's practiced by many races all over the globe. Perhaps Mr. Lieu can actually identify what race Kung Fu is. It wasn't just Lieu who tried to make absurd claims about Trump. Joe Biden's spokesperson also chimed in on this.
I think there's no question that some of the damaging rhetoric that we saw during the prior administration, blaming, calling COVID, the Wuhan virus or other things, led to, perceptions of the Asian American community that are inaccurate, unfair, have raised, threatening, has elevated threats against Asian Americans. And we're seeing that around the country.
One side note here, the Chris Salcedo Show has been using the term China virus long before President Trump started using it. I'm going to be as fair to Ted Lieu and Biden's spokesperson as they are to me, to Trump and other conservatives. What's really at play here is that Lieu and Psaki and virtually the entirety of the Socialist Democrat Party are protecting communist China. They're trying to say that our criticism of America's enemy is somehow responsible for an increase in violence against Asian Americans, when they know full well our target is the communists. That's who Psaki and Lieu are trying to protect. Any 5-year-old knows that China is a country, not a race. Any intelligent person knows that Wuhan is a city, not a race. So let me be as fair to Biden's spokesmouth and Congressman Lieu as they are to me and the president. These people are defending an inhuman regime that enslaves 3 million people. These Democrat socialists support China stealing the freedoms of the people of Hong Kong, and Democrats are already preparing to abandon Taiwan. Psaki and Liu are big cheerleaders and defenders of China's forced abortions. Both of these leftists support China's racism toward black people. Oh, this is fun. Let's go on, treating liberals like they treat us. Here's MSNBS star Chris Hayes.
There are a record number of anti-transgender measures in state legislatures this year, at least 78 in 25 different states, and many of them with strikingly similar language, using phrases like biological sex, biological males, sex listed on birth certificates, and the nearly 50 bills that would ban trans athletes from playing on team sports. And the first of those bans was just signed into law by Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves last week. It is set to become law on July 1st. I have been noting this, that, the two bills that Republican state legislatures seem most intent on in the year 2021 seem to be targeting voting and restricting voting and targeting trans youth. It really does seem like those are like the central policy priorities happening in state legislatures.
This is why Newsmax is so important, folks. If only MSNBS were allowed to dispense their drivel, people would think that conservatives are trying to stop American citizens from voting and stop transgender kids from partaking in sports. Now, Chris Hayes is unfair in his distortions of conservatives. So let me provide some balance and also dispense the same level of fairness to that liberal extremist known as Chris Hayes. The Republicans are trying to make sure that our elections live up to the American ideal of one citizen, one vote. Mr. Hayes opposes these efforts, so we can only conclude that Mr. Hayes supports cheating at the ballot box and for giving foreign nationals a vote in America. An odd play for a man who wet his pants for months over the Trump-Russia collusion that never happened. Conservatives, because they have a soul and a conscience, are working to make sure that America's daughters are not put at automatic disadvantage by being forced to compete with biological males for sports scholarships. Now, the science that Mr. Hayes appears to be unaware of shows that typically males are stronger and have a larger muscle mass than biological females. This gives males an advantage in many sports. Judging by Mr. Hayes' criticism of these efforts, we can only conclude that Chris Hayes of MSNBC is anti-women, as he supports putting the nation's girls at a disadvantage in nearly every sport. Again, that's us treating Hayes as fairly as he treats conservatives. Just like the Democrat socialists' cancerous cancel culture is predicated on fabricated slights based on the most outrageous and intellectually vacuous arguments, so too are liberals and their weak attempts to silence their political opposition through spurious and dumb predicates. What's amazing to me is that the surrender caucus in the Republican Party is inclined to surrender to these morons, afraid of being criticized by them. I can't see why. In my view, respect is earned. The American left has done nothing that would explain the timidity of some in the GOP, and certainly the American left has done nothing that deserves any respect. To you leftists, I say this: you reap what you sow.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.